This episode is brought to you by The Good Storyteller, with original music by Eva Donahue.
Hello and welcome to the Write Her Club, the podcast where we bring your favourite female and non-binary writers and interrogate them about writing until they give up all the trade secrets on pain of death. Today we have Samantha Chong, author of A Prodigal Tiger, which has debuted in March. So Samantha, please could you introduce yourself and your book to our wonderful audience?
Sure. I don't really think it's going to take much death to get me to give up trade secrets, but we will do our best. Hi, I'm Samantha. I'm a Malaysian author, and I write YA fantasy. My writing tends to focus a lot about home, Malaysian food, and also a lot of ghosts. As you mentioned, my debut novel, Prodigal Tiger, just came out March 17th. And it's about a girl who goes home to Penang, Malaysia, to find her missing brother, only to realize ghosts have kidnapped him, and now she needs to fight them all to get him back. Just a casual Friday, you know?
I love it. It's amazing, amazing. And so you talked a little bit about the fact that, you focus on Malaysian food. Obviously, the Prodigal Tiger, a lot of it's about like kind of Malaysian dishes. So I thought what would be a little fun way to warm up is I asked you beforehand about 5 of your sort of favorite fictional characters from some books. And I have 5 Malaysian foods here. And I want you to tell me which character you think would would be their favorite food. So you're going to match up each character to a food, which I know is scary, right? So the food I have is, first of all, I have nasi lemak. So think on that. Then I have roti canai. I have laksa as well. And then I have kueh lapis. And then finally, chendol. So I feel like a nice mix of like sweet and savory stuff. Okay, so I want you to tell me, so the fictional characters that Samantha has chosen is Annabeth Chase, Katniss and Peter, Nancy Drew, and Xinyin, yeah? Xinyin, yep. Yeah, Brill. So I'll give you a second to kind of ruminate on that and think about who are you matching up to which dish? What are you thinking? And give us a little explanation for why.
Yeah. Well, first I have a clarification. When you say laksa, which kind of laksa are we talking about?
I'm thinking asam laksa. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking maybe.
Great choice. My favorite one. Yeah. Well, let's work through this. This is so fun. I love talking about Malaysian food. So I think, asam laksa, like I said, is my favorite dish. And because asam laksa is like very tangy, very like spicy, very sour, like it's sort of like unexpected. You kind of never really know what you're gonna get. And also very fishy, right? I do think because of like how bright and vibrant it is, that does feel, and this is matching characters to the foods, right?
Yeah, matching characters, matching vibes, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that has to be Katniss slightly. Because like she's fierce, she's like extremely unpredictable in that sense because she's so like her own person and doesn't necessarily do what everyone else is asking her to do. I do feel like that has to go to Katniss. For chendol, and because chendol is sweet, it's really like milky, but like the green mung bean flour, I feel like sometimes people look at it and they sort of hesitate because it's not necessarily a texture or like a color that they're necessarily familiar with. But it would take a very curious person to sort of like dip into that slightly. But it is sweet, and you know who is very sweet in this? It's Nancy Drew. So Nancy gets chendol. Kueh lapis is a little... because like there's so many layers and you peel back a layer and there's like more complex layers, I do feel like that has to go. This is a hard one. I'm thinking like it's a toss up between like Annabeth Chase or like PETA. And I don't
see. I was thinking PETA, not to influence your judgment, but I feel like PETA is, if anyone's got those layers, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do think that has to go to PETA as well. Because like you peel back a layer and it's like, oh, sweet boy. Oh, actually like master like orator and like manipulator in the games. Oh, actually like he can like play the careers. Oh, like it's like all these like surprising things. Okay, so that's 3. Let's see. Roti canai is the thing is they're both really classic dishes. And roti canai is very much like very reliable. So you know what? Actually, that goes to Annabeth. Because Annabeth, in a pinch, very reliable. Like, you know exactly, like, you're gonna get like a great strategy out of her. And, you know, she's always there for you at any time of the day. And, you know, roti canai is one of those things that you can have into breakfast, you could have it at lunch, you could have it like as an after dinner snack, depending on who sells it, I guess. But, you know, like, it's a classic for that reason. So yes, Annabeth Chase gets roti canai. For sure. Which leaves Xingyin with nasi lemak, which makes sense. Nasi lemak is it's like the quasi-national dish of Malaysia. And as a main character, I really loved Xingyin because like she is so rooted in like what she wants. Her goals are so clear throughout the book of the Daughter of Moon Goddess. So I think like that's a good pairing in that sense, where it's like you know exactly what she wants and you know exactly what you're getting with nasi lemak, which this is like homey, like spiced rice and like curry chicken and then like anchovies and cucumbers and hard-boiled eggs. Like, it's so warming and calming that it seems like a good pairing in that sense. A classic for a classic icon. We love that for her.
That's amazing, and I'm now quite hungry. But the way that you described that nasi lemak at the end, I was just like, I haven't had it for so long, and I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. And for yourself, what would you say is either your favorite dish or you feel like a dish that would suit you from Malaysian cuisine?
Oh, my favorite dish. My favorite dish is asam laksa, actually. But asking me to pick a favorite dish is sort of like asking me to throw a moving dart, right? Like a target that keeps moving. Currently, I'm really craving char kway teow, which is stir-fried rice cakes. In Penang, we fry it with dark soy sauce and eggs and bean sprouts, and sometimes it's pork lard and radish, I think it is, dried radishes. And it's salty, but it's also like there's a little bit of hint of sweetness, and it's my favorite dish, and I love it so much. I don't know that I necessarily identify with it because I don't really think I'm that salty, but I don't know, maybe I am.
So I want to know a little bit more about kind of your writing journey and what inspired you to write The Prodigal Tiger.
Yeah. So I've always loved storytelling in any form. And this is true from being an author to also like my day job in digital media. I've loved storytelling in any format, whether it's long form, short form, spoken word. And so from very young, I loved writing. I tried to write short stories. They sort of turned into like not quite novels. So I think novellas basically is what I was writing. And, you know, fan fiction was a great outlet for me when I was young. In college, I did a lot of spoken word. In high school, I did a lot of poetry. And so writing has always sort of shifted formats for me. I did a little bit of like script writing at some point. And so I've always loved trying to think about like, these are different worlds. How do I translate that into something that like someone reads on a page and goes like, oh, I understand what that feels like. And this novel sort of came about because in 2019 I had sort of sat down with my friend and I was like, well, I kind of want to try writing a novel. And, you know, I had a bunch of different ideas floating around. So we sat down in a bar in Greenpoint, New York, and we like fleshed out a bunch of ideas on a piece of paper. And then I was like, cool, I'm gonna go write a short story or a novel. And then I tried writing a short story, and then maybe like several hundred pages in, I was like, this is no longer a short story. This is 100% a novel, and now I need to finish it. And so that's kind of where Prodigal Tiger came from. It was an aborted short story I had started, and the premise was very similar. Girl goes home to Penang. In that case, it was a contemporary, not a fantasy, but the opening has stayed the same, pretty much, where she goes home, doesn't recognize the place, doesn't recognize the people. They also don't recognize her. And as I started writing more and more of Prodigal Tiger, it became very clear that that was actually the core of the story for me. Like, okay, there's the magic and the ghosts and the missing brother and all the stakes, but the core of it is this girl, like, sort of being like, well, where do I really belong? Or what do I need to do to sort of like sink back into this place?
That's so interesting. And like, how long did it take you from the conception of being like, this is no longer a short story to actually like finishing it as like a full novel?
Yeah, I started in 2019. So late 2019, I started writing. And then, you know, something happened in 2020 that we don't have to talk about. And then And then I finished the draft actually in 2021. I will say it took me that long because I went into this super blind. I went into this with I don't know anything about word counts or genre expectations. I just want to tell a story. And so the final draft I think came out to about 226,000 words, which is for all the listeners out there too long and far too long. So then we started editing. So 2021 to I want to say 2023 was editing, and then in late 2022, early 2023, and I think that's when I started querying, and then it all sort of kicked off after that. But the whole genesis of it started in 2019, and I will say I had a blast for those 2 years, sort of just like sitting and writing and sort of really exploring where the story was going to go. And definitely overwriting.
I mean, I did make a face when you said your little word count. That is a long word count. Yeah.
Far too long.
Yeah. You can do what you want, but also that is you will have a lot of people go, whoa, that is a long book. The Prodigal Tiger draws quite a lot from Malaysian folklore. For that, were you mainly just drawing on your own sort of knowledge, or did you do more research? Did you maybe talk to friends and family, or were you hitting the books every week?
No, that was very much drawn on stories I'd heard. So my mom has always told me stories about the Pontianak, and the Naga was something that I'd sort of grown up hearing stories about, and the rest of it, the Ghost and the Hungry Ghost Festival, the thing that's interesting to me when I tell people about the ghosts is that the way I sort of think of them, and I think most Southeast Asians probably do this too, is the fact that they're kind of just there. We kind of just accept the fact that there might be a ghost in the vicinity. And, it's built into our cultural traditions too, right? Qingbang, honoring our ancestors, the Hungry Ghost Festival, you have to feed them. And, when funeral traditions, for example, you burn the money and you burn the effigies so that they have the stuff in the afterlife. And to me, it is very much a casual thing. And so I sort of drew on that sentiment when writing, where it's okay, yes, the ghosts, I don't have to justify why the ghosts are here. The ghosts just are. And there was an interesting starting point to begin with, and the Hungry Ghost Festival sort of was a good segue into that, of naturally naturally it's when the barriers start thinning that this all kicks off. So in that sense, I sort of just drew on what I'd already been steeped in. There was not a ton of, I think, book research I had to do, other than and I actually didn't really do a lot of book research, other than I did go back to Penang. I was very lucky to go back in the course of writing and editing this book, and so it was sort of interesting to sort of walk the streets that were mentioned in the book and sort of take into account the sights, the sounds, the smells, it's all as minute details as the blinds, right? The wooden blinds, or the old stores on Campbell Street, or the way that the ACs are always perpetually rattling, the water pails under the air conditioners, little things like that was stuff that I really valued from going back to Penang and sort of looking at it from such a intense writer eye.
Yeah, I mean, obviously mentioned the Hungry Ghost Festival. Would you mind explaining that quickly to our audience for those who don't know what that is?
The Hungry Ghost Festival happens in the 7th lunar month, and basically what happens is the idea is that the barriers between the afterlife and our real world start thinning. And so ghosts start coming through those barriers. They're hungry ghosts. And the idea is that you offer food and offerings to these ghosts. They're usually your ancestors, to sort of pacify them and appease them, and sort of send them on with a feast, because what are we if not obsessed with food? And so the other thing that happens that's sort of mentioned in the book is the performances. So you'll have these big vibrant stage performances all over in Penang, especially you'll see some stages here and there, and they put on these really vibrant performances, and that dance, singing, the whole works. And the whole point of that is to sort of distract any ghosts wandering around so they don't wreak havoc. And so when I was thinking about this book, it was a little bit of, well, what happens if that doesn't work and the ghosts actually do start wreaking havoc? What does that look like? So that's kind of the impetus of that a little bit.
sort of moving off of like the kind of talking a lot about like the Prodigal Tiger as like the actual concept, but moving more towards like the process of it, what would you say was like the hardest part about kind of writing and like getting published for you? Was it just the writing part, or was it when you started querying and you were like editing? What would you say has been like the hardest aspect of that for you?
The querying and the submission process, by far the hardest, because I think like that's, even though like it was really short for me, the waiting is the worst part for me, because I need to be doing something. And with writing or editing, you can constantly be like writing or editing. You can constantly be like, well, I'm doing something. This is productive. But then by the time you get to querying or submission, it's out of your hands. And it, in some ways, it is very much like, I have carved my heart out of my chest. Do you like it? And that sensation is something that I think I am not, I don't think I will fully ever be okay with that, even going on submission in the future. Like the idea that like you are not in control is something that I'm still working through with the publishing process a little bit. Writing and editing, I love editing more than I like drafting, to be very honest. But the craft of like getting to bring this whole world to life is something that I love doing. So it's sort of balancing both a little bit of like, okay, you build this whole thing and now you trust other people will see the thing and appreciate it and cherish it. And I'm very lucky that Prodigal Tiger got such a good team. And you know, from the cover artist to like my editor, obviously, and to the publicity and marketing team and my agent, like everyone has been so kind and so considerate of just like all these details that we put in, and I've really appreciated that. So
You talked a bit about like the fact that you prefer editing to writing, or like you, that's the bit that you find more enjoyable, which I feel like is very interesting because I feel a lot of people say like the opposite. What would you say is kind of your writing routine, and why would you say that you find editing like more fun than the writing process?
I prefer editing to writing. I think, as you have maybe been able to tell from like the last two things I said about having data points, I think my brain works very well like breaking things into chunks. And so editing scratches that itch for me where it's like, okay, you've got a first draft. It's probably messy. It probably like has a ton of plot holes. Now you get to tear it all apart and sort of put it all back together. And I love that. I love puzzles. So that is the part that really brings me a lot of joy for dev edits. It's like, okay, you have something here and I hope it's good, but how do we make it better? And drafting, I think the blankness of the first page is a little daunting to me because it's like, oh, you have to get this down. You have to get it right. It has to exist. But the thing is, you want it to exist well. And the thing that I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to like remember is that first drafts do not have to be perfect. They can be messy, they can be bad. The first draft is just to make sure that the story is there. Then the edits are to make it work. But to make it work, it needs to be there. So that's a habit I'm like trying to break as I like write more stuff. It's like, okay, get a first draft down. It will feel messy, and that's okay.
How do you stay kind of motivated to keep writing? Do you get writer's block? What do you do if you do? Or is it just kind of easy for you to lock in and get it out of there?
It depends on whether I'm on deadline or not. And unfortunately, I've run into writer's block both when I have been on deadline and when I've not been on deadline. And so my tactics sort of differ depending on both. If I'm not on deadline and, you know, I look at it and I'm like, okay, you know what? No one's waiting on this. Like, I can afford to take a little bit of time. Then I step away from the project and then I do something that isn't writing. So I do a puzzle or I paint or I go outside. I like play mahjong with my family or I watch a movie. Like something to sort of like not think about writing or at least like not be in the act of writing. And more often than not, something will trigger a thought and then that thought will lead to a solution. Like one time I was swimming in the pool and then like halfway through a lap I was like, "Oh, I know the problem of why that scene isn't working is like 2 scenes back actually. I have to go fix that." And then I had to finish the lap and then haul myself out and go right. But sometimes you get so in the weeds that you can't really get yourself out. And so you need to like break yourself out of that loop. If I am on deadline and actually this needs to get done, there's two things you can do. One, sometimes I just like skip the scene altogether. I'm like, I know what the point of the scene is. I just don't know how it's unfolding. So let me skip it for now, go to the next thing. And then we will see like if something in that scene triggers something in this scene. And that has helped in some ways because sometimes I go to the next scene and I'm like, oh, actually, like you don't actually need this thing that's like stopping you in the scene. The reason why it's not working is because you don't need it. And so like you take that off the equation. The other thing I do is I do something called rubber ducking, which is I get on the phone with a very patient writer friend and I literally say, this is the scene, this is the problem I'm having. Can we iterate on a few things? And more often than not, the act of talking about it, whether or not we come to a solution, is very helpful because your brain sort of like has to like reframe it with someone else because they're asking different questions that you're not asking. And then, you know, it shifts the scene or it unlocks something. And I've been very grateful to all my writer friends who let me talk their ears off for like hours on the phone, just being like, but this doesn't work. Why isn't it working? How about this? And they're like, well, have you considered that this is the other reason? Or have you considered trying this instead? And sort of like bouncing off each other. So it is very much like to beat writer's block. I think I just interrupt it in a lot of different ways. But, you know, I've never really particularly found that like sitting there and like trying to hammer my way through it really works. It very much involves me having to like shake up the process a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think those are both excellent pieces of advice, obviously, like for completely different scenarios. I do quite like the mental image of you coming out of a pool and like sort of squelching like to like a notepad, like you quickly write down your notes. Don't know if that's how it actually worked, but that's what I was imagining is that you were like at your like laptop, like still in your swimming costume, being like, right, I've got to get this down. You can either confirm or deny. If you say nothing, I'm taking that as confirmation.
If I remember correctly, it was me squelching out of the pool. You are correct. I did squelch out of the pool, but my phone was like where my towel was, and so I think I like literally picked up my phone and like typed out like a note, and then was like, okay, and then figured out how to not drip water all over my laptop. But the squelching, accurate.
Okay,
So-
good to know. So, for any writers out there listening to this, hoping to get published, do you have kind of any advice for them?
Yeah. I actually just saw I wish I remembered who said it, but like there was a Threads post I skimmed past this morning. And it says something along the lines of like write what you love because you have to read it like 75,000 more times or something as you're like editing, querying, and submission. And I do think that is very true. I think like there's a lot of chatter about like what industry trends are or what is important to like get a deal in this industry. And I'm not saying like don't pay attention to those. I'm not saying that that's not important. However, what I am saying is that like trends shift and things change all the time. And what is hot today, by the time you finish writing that book, may not even be still hot by the time you're ready to query and go in submission. So write what you love, write the story you want to tell, because that at the end of the day, like that is the piece of the heart you're handing to the masses, and you have to be able to stand behind it and love it. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily write to trends. I would say just write what you want to tell, and then there are people who will help you try and make that work or more quote unquote sellable, even though that's subjective. But from the get-go, you have to write what you want to write, and then you find a team to help you bring that vision to life. But try not to compromise at the very beginning what you're writing.
And talking of like liking what you're writing, obviously I know Prodigal Tiger's just come out and you've got another book coming out. Is it 2028? Is that right?
Yes.
So are you currently working on that project? And after that project, do you know what's next for you? Are there any dream projects apart from obviously food tour of Penang? Are there any kind of dream projects that you're thinking about?
I have a giant Airtable of projects that absolutely are all clamoring to be next on the list. Right now, obviously, we are focused on Paper Ghost, which is the next Malaysian YA fantasy coming out in 2028. So we're working on the draft with the editor, just sort of like shaping that and making sure it's good to go. It's been a lot of fun. That one has required a lot more research than Prodigal Tiger. So I'm very excited to see how that turns out. And I'm excited to say more about it. Can I just like give the elevator pitch super quickly?
Yeah, you can. I was about to ask, like, what can you tell us about it? Or is it all like hush hush?
Hush, hush. No, I can absolutely give like a small little pitch. So it's about this paper effigy maker who realizes that ghosts are on the verge of taking over the island again because ghosts will continue to be ghosts,
Mhm.
you know? So to stop the undead, she has to team up with her ex-boyfriend as well as an annoying exorcist to learn the art of death rituals and sort of figure out how to put all the dead to rest again. So I'm really excited about it. I think it sort of showcases a different side of Penang that is different from Prodigal Tiger, and I'm excited to just show different sides and have people be really interested in learning more, I think. So
I love that. Sounds super exciting. Well, we can't wait to read it. Before we finish wrapping up, I do have a question of, do you have any hot takes, or can be quite lukewarm takes on book talk, writing industry, books, anything kind of related to writing? Can you give us a sort of take? And I will try and debate you, even though I might agree with you.
the hot take that wasn't gonna be writing related was like Malaysian food is one of the best in the world.
Mm.
Fight me on that one. But
I can't fight you that one. I agree 100%. The way that every day I wake up and I'm like, why are all these other cuisines like getting so much spotlight when Malaysian food has it all? You know, you have all the different like cultural blends. Like I'm out here like representing every day. I'm like, guys, like Malaysian food is the best food. That's not a hot take for me. That's just correct. That's an ice cold take.
we are on the same crusade here. So but my hot take for writing, which is not really a hot take, is sort of there's room for every story and your writers are not your competition. I think in a lot of chatter about the publishing industry, there's this sort of sense sometimes that like the business aspect of it makes it feel like there's very limited space, and so therefore like you are competing for the resources. And it's true that we've talked about shifting trends, and like obviously like there's all this news now about all these like imprints shuttering or shrinking, and in some ways there's the very real like tangible like business aspects to that, yes. But the root of it, and I think I would try to encourage young writers to remember this too, the root of writing is not necessarily about the business. The root of writing is about the community you build, and the more we build community and the more we uplift other writers, like a rising tide lifts all boats, right, is the saying. And so part of what has made this journey so valuable for me personally is this idea that like people were very kind to me when I started writing. Like they were very kind about querying, and they were very kind about resources, and they were very kind about like connecting me with other writers who were also like in the same boat. And I have so many friends today because of the kindness of those people. And so this idea that like your journey is only as valuable as like the people you build it with. And so like the idea that like I can give back to my fellow debuts, like 2026 debuts or other Southeast Asian authors or Southeast Asian creators, is something that's so important to me, because I think in an industry that gives the impression that sometimes it is shrinking or that it's in danger, you need your people, and you need to be able to like band together and sort of uplift each other in order to get the visibility that it's in by default is not always available. And so the goal here is to make it easier for everyone who comes after us. And the question is, well, how do we do that? So that's kind of my hot take.
Kind of on that note, are there any kind of like either Malaysian authors or Southeast Asian authors that you kind of want to shout out right now?
Yeah, Rowan Lau is like a Malaysian author who I've really admired for a really long time. There's Amy Liao. Hannah Alkaf is obviously like a hallmark of Malaysian authors. I've looked up to her for a very long time. May Koyudo just released a book in February about the novel is called Goodbye and Everything After. It's about grief and love. I'm really excited to pick that up. And then there's June Ciel Tan, who just released her second book in her duology, which is, I think, Darker by 4 and Brighter by 9 is the 2 in the duology, and I'm really excited to pick that up as well. So there's lots of really great Southeast Asian authors out there, and I'm so hyped to see that like we're all writing these like diverse genres and sort of drawing on these like cultural influences to build these like beautiful worlds. So yeah, I'm really excited for the next crop of Southeast Asian authors coming up, and it's a good time. I think the more that our region, I think, gets spotlighted in various genres and narratives, the better, I think.
Brill. Wow. Thank you so much for this interview. This has been a blast. Before we go, is there anything that you'd like to plug? And also, where can people find you?
Yeah, Prodigal Tiger is out now, so I guess that's what I'm plugging. You can find it in most shelves, especially in North America, but I've seen it pop up in other countries, so I'm really excited about that. Real rush to see my book in Malaysia, by the way. So exciting. Other than that, people can find me on my Instagram. The username is samjamtimtam. I do have a newsletter. I think you just type in Samantha Chong in the Substack. It should pop up. It's got postcards from Sam, and that is mostly essays about writing, but also like my personal experiences and how that relates to the craft of writing. Paper Ghost comes out in 2028, so stay tuned for more. And maybe you'll get a sneak peek. Maybe you'll get like early previews of what the book is going to be like with mood boards and stuff.
Ooh, so exciting. Yeah, I can't wait. I really can't wait. I know I have to wait, but I can't wait. But it has been an absolute delight speaking to you. And to all of our listeners, we will be back soon with another amazing writer. And have a great rest of your evening. And remember, writers are your friends, not your competition. Don't take them out. And goodbye.